Oh, I initially believed that Mom had significant savings. I distinctly recall mentioning to you that she should be financially secure. However, it seems she's been asked to leave already. What's the use of harboring a jobless burden? I've been residing here for 4 months, and my son, along with his wife, has depleted my savings. They treated me as though I were a burden, and I'd reached my limit. I decided to leave quietly. At that moment, my son, John, called me sounding frantic, asking, "Mom, what's going on?" Around the same time, something I did became headline news across the United States. I am Kelly, 72 years old, and I've been living in Italy for several years. Unfortunately, my health took a turn for the worse, prompting my return to the States. My old apartment was no longer available, so I reached out to my son and his wife to see if I could stay with them temporarily. My only son, John, is 42 and works as an office employee. He and his wife, Madison, don't have children, and they generally keep to themselves. Although we lost touch while I was away, I decided to reconnect, and John seemed pleased to hear from me. I explained my situation, and after some reluctance, John agreed to let me stay for a while. Despite the awkwardness of imposing on them, the joy of reuniting with my family outweighed my hesitations. With a mix of nervousness and happiness, I took a taxi from the airport to their house. Upon arrival, John and Madison greeted me. But while John appeared happy, Madison seemed visibly unhappy. I planned to stay for a few months, and my belongings would be delivered later. After dropping off my carry-on bag, we chatted about our lives, jobs, and my recent experiences in Italy. During our conversation, John asked why I had moved to Italy, and I simply replied that I wanted to enjoy the Italy countryside as I got older. John laughed, but Madison remained discontent. We also discussed my health issues, particularly severe dizziness, possibly related to Meniere's disease. I explained that living alone made me feel insecure, and I hoped to stay with them until my condition stabilized. After the conversation, I returned to the entrance to organize my belongings, and inadvertently overheard John and Madison discussing my stay. John expressed his willingness to let me stay, emphasizing that she's my mom, while Madison voiced her displeasure, citing concerns about their days off and the duration of my stay. Despite my understanding of the inconvenience I imposed, I felt genuinely happy to be spending time with John and his wife after all these years apart. When John was young, I raised him as a single mom after losing my husband. We faced numerous hardships, including dealing with illnesses. While my current situation couldn't make up for all those challenges, I came to their house with the intention of sharing my apologies and gratitude. It's unfortunate that I'm not entirely welcomed, but I acknowledge that they have their own lives to live. I retreated to the guest room they had assigned me, attempting to calm my anxious heart. The following morning, John headed off to work, leaving only Madison and me in the house. While engrossed in some crafting in the living room, Madison confronted me about the scattered fabric scraps and threads, urging me not to make a mess. Apologetically, I offered to clean up and showed her the small pouch I was sewing, adorned with a charming green turtle design. Despite my attempt to share my crafting passion, Madison expressed disinterest and insisted that I couldn't linger around the house all day. Due to my dizziness when going outside, she proposed driving me to the nearby community center during the day, emphasizing that I should contribute by assisting with household chores. Stunned, I reluctantly agreed, and from that point on, I found myself shouldering all the housework despite feeling dizzy and sore. Both Madison and John treated me more like a housekeeper, with Madison seemingly engrossed in social media and neglecting household tasks. That evening, when John returned home, he approached me with a smile and discussed the financial aspect of my stay. He inquired about contributing financially, and when I nodded and handed him my banking card from the turtle pouch, his expression shifted as he quickly checked the balance. John seemed disappointed, questioning if I had any other accounts and pestering me about additional funds. I reassured him that the amount was sufficient for my needs at my age, smiling despite the growing tension. As the conversation continued, John's demeanor darkened, expressing dissatisfaction with the amount. He insisted on holding onto the cash and cards, emphasizing that he was doing me a favor by allowing me to stay. That night, lying in bed, I overheard John expressing disappointment through the wall that separated our rooms. He regretted allowing me to stay, assuming that I had significant savings and expressing concern about the household's financial status. I insisted that they should kick her out already. That jobless moocher brings no benefits to us whatsoever. The two of them spoke confidently, freely discussing in the next room, or perhaps they wanted me to hear them from my cold bed. Holding back tears of loneliness and sorrow, the next day, Madison, having a day off, drove me to the local community center. I opened my cargo bag to continue my handiwork in the lounge area, but realized I had left the essential fabric at home. Despite hesitating, I couldn't ask Madison to go back and get it. Fortunately, my dizziness was under control that day, so I decided to take a walk home to retrieve the fabric. Upon arriving, I glanced through the window into the house and saw Madison with an unfamiliar man. Initially thinking he was a visitor, I soon noticed their intimate closeness. Hesitating outside for a while, I turned back without entering the house, realizing that they wanted me out to avoid interrupting their affair. Back at the community center, I kept thinking about Madison and the man, and decided to seek advice by calling someone. From then on, I avoided bringing up the affair and continued interacting with John and his wife. However, whenever I left the house, I conspicuously placed a red turtle pouch at the edge of the living room side table. 4 months had passed since I started staying with John's family. By this point, I had essentially become the household maid. When at home, I had to do endless chores, and when Madison was home, I was relegated to the community center. My savings had mostly been drained by John, a man with a gambling addiction who spent most of his free time on lotteries and slots. His fixation on money stemmed from the financial hardships he suffered as a child. Although I initially tried to intervene, mentioning it always enraged him. After 4 months, I couldn't take it anymore. One night before a long weekend, I decided to bring up something I had been considering. I thanked John and Madison for letting me stay and apologized for the trouble I caused when John was young. Pulling out a homemade turtle pouch from the table, I explained that it was a token of my gratitude to both of them. Contrary to my expectations, neither John nor Madison showed any interest in my handmade pouch. Frustrated, John dismissed it, questioning if they were really out of money and suggesting they consider the Italy account. I pleaded with him to accept it as a token of my love, reminiscing about how happy he used to be when I filled the shell with candy and pocket money when he was little. John grew increasingly irritated, declaring that he was not a kid anymore and expressing annoyance at my presence. Desperate, I mentioned Anthony, who helped us in our old apartment, but John, growing increasingly frustrated, silenced me, stating, "Are we done?" Stunned into silence, I had no further words. The revelation left John stunned, staring at the electronic device in his hand. Madison, on the other hand, was visibly distressed and embarrassed. The recording continued to play, capturing the intimate moments between Madison and the mystery man. I calmly sat down, watching the drama unfold before me. John's anger shifted from me to Madison as the truth sank in. He demanded an explanation, his voice filled with a mix of betrayal and hurt. Madison, now flustered and attempting to salvage the situation, tried to explain herself. She stumbled over her words, attempting to justify her actions, but John was not having it. The trust in their relationship had been shattered. I interjected, breaking the tense silence. "John, I didn't want to expose this, but it seems you needed to know the truth. The turtle pouch was never about the money. It was about revealing the secrets hidden within your own life." John, still processing the situation, looked at me with a mix of confusion and anger. "Why did you do this?" he asked. "Sometimes the truth is hard to face, but it sets you free. I wanted to show you that money isn't the only thing that can disrupt your life. Madison made choices that affected your relationship, and you deserve to know." John, now grappling with the reality of his marriage, turned his attention back to Madison. The cafe became a stage for a deeply personal and painful confrontation. The electronic device, disguised as a red turtle, had unwittingly become the catalyst for a revelation neither of them anticipated. As the conversation between John and Madison continued, I quietly left the cafe, leaving them to deal with the aftermath of the truth that had surfaced from the depths of the red turtle pouch. However, John remained tenacious, refusing to release his grip. While their struggle ensued, I seized the opportunity to unveil the envelope I had brought, revealing several incriminating photos of Madison engaged in infidelity with another man in the comfort of their home. Faced with irrefutable evidence, Madison was visibly flustered, repeatedly questioning about the reasons behind this revelation. John, taking charge, meticulously examined each photo. A sense of unease had lingered since I arrived at their house. A friend had tipped me off about hiring someone to uncover the truth, even offering to cover the expenses. Confronting Madison, I expressed my dismay, emphasizing the sadness in discovering deception within the family. John, pointing to his son's marriage, questioned her motives, prompting her to admit to her infidelity. As accusations flew between the couple, John's silence was shattered when confronted about his debts. Madison, in turn, accused him of squandering money on gambling. The investigator had delved into their financial affairs, exposing a dire financial situation that brought the couple to the brink of bankruptcy. Desperate for a solution, they turned to John's mother for financial help, only to discover she had already donated everything, leaving them with a red turtle figurine. The confrontation escalated into chaos, drawing attention from onlookers. John, fixated on the million-dollar figure, demanded its return. The police had to intervene to restrain him, leading to my escorted return to the hotel due to concerns about his aggressive behavior. A week later, John and Madison's relationship irreversibly crumbled. The affair and financial woes culminated in a divorce. John, now single, spiraled further into gambling and debt, even attempting to embezzle company funds and subsequently losing his job. His outburst at the cafe went viral on social media, hindering his job prospects. Madison left without support and moved into public housing alone. A mocking online post about my turtle went viral, leading to harassment, stalking, and the loss of her part-time job. Even her affair partner abandoned her, and she now relies on temporary assistance for needy families. Following these events, I returned to my home in Italy, unpacking and changing into a dress as I reviewed work documents in my apartment with practiced ease. I perked up at the sound of the entrance opening, suspecting it to be Anthony, my longtime cohabitant. "Hey, Madam President, welcome back. How was your trip to America?" Anthony greeted me with a warm smile as he set down his coat and bags. At 77 years old, Anthony had been a resident in the same apartment complex where my son John and I lived years ago. Reflecting on our shared history, I remembered the difficult times when I, a struggling single mother caring for a young asthmatic John, faced poverty after losing my husband. It was during those trying moments that Anthony and his wife, our upstairs neighbors, became our lifelines. With no utilities and no one else to turn to, I was on the verge of desperation, contemplating ending it all. However, it was Anthony and his wife who rescued us from that dark place. "Please call me Kelly. I'm back, and look, I brought so many souvenirs," I exclaimed, presenting the gifts. Anthony examined each item on the table, his face beaming with joy. After we had managed to get back on our feet, Anthony and his wife moved away for work. Several years later, fate brought us together again in the city. I started assisting Anthony with a support program for the needy, which he had initiated. By then, Anthony's wife had passed away, and we became not only business partners but life partners as well. Since Anthony's retirement a few years ago, I've been leading the organization we built together. What began as a small operation by Anthony and me has evolved into a large-scale international organization over the past 29 years. Currently, we focus on supporting single moms globally. Despite our recognition in Italy, we're still relatively unknown in America. I had plans to expand our activities there soon, and before they discovered the extent of my work, I wanted to spend quality time with John and his family as just a mom. Even if it was only for a brief moment, I found happiness in being with my family. Now, at 72 years old, I see it as just a number. There's still so much I want and need to accomplish. Adjusting the strength in my back, I began contemplating the content of my international speech for the following day.